Aloha, Skya Buddhisuke here. Ever since I was in second grade, I have had to wear glasses or contacts to see things far away. And I don't anymore. And I have not had laser surgery. In fact, I've had no surgery on my eyes. And yet, now I can see clearly without my glasses or contacts. And what I've learned in this process of healing my vision is that not only can anyone heal their vision, but it also heals other aspects of your life, because the mechanisms that are causing degraded vision are also affecting our health in many other ways. So, in my approach to wellness and well-being, I like to teach people how to get to the root causes of their illness, their dis-ease. And vision is an incredible way to have feedback for where we're holding on to tension. And this is something that I love to share with clients, and I love to share with people who are interested in not only healing their vision or their health, but in healing themselves from cell to soul. So the body, the mind, our emotions, and all aspects of ourselves as human beings. And that is my passion, is sharing that, and it's also my area of expertise. So recently I put out a Facebook post sharing one of my favorite self-care practices called sunning, which is where I close my eyes and I look up towards the sun or a bright light, and I just move my head back and forth, trying to relax my eyes, letting that light act as like a massage, just melting the muscles around my eyes. And it's something that I do, periodically throughout the day. It's like almost like a little meditation check-in for me, and it just feels really good. And it helps my eyes relax, because when my eyes are relaxed and they're working the way that they originally worked before I picked up the tension, I can see clearly. And so this is part of a holistic practice that I like to call yoga for your eyes. And like yoga, it's not something that you can just like learn a technique from a book and then, master it. Like, you actually have to practice it and do it. And you also have to understand how to practice it in a way that's going to get you the results that you want. And so this is something that I'm available to share with you if it's something you're interested in exploring. And there are other really good resources. And one of those resources, my new friend Kevin Cassidy reached out to me through my Facebook post and told me that he also had a really profound healing experience with his vision. And so we scheduled a time to talk, and this video is actually us having that conversation, and hopefully it's the first of many, because it was a really incredible conversation, and I can't wait to have more. So enjoy.
Okay, so hi, I'm Skya Buddhisuke. It's good to meet you.
Yeah, you too. I'm Kevin Cassidy.
Nice to meet you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how social media kind of just brought us together on this topic of something that we've both experienced that's pretty rare, I would say.
Yeah, it's very cool, and we get to kind of interview each other here.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
What is this thing that we're leaving everyone waiting, that we've experienced, that's miraculous and amazing?
Well, you're right. This is kind of exciting for me, because I've never met anybody who's done this before, excepting you and the guy who taught me.
Yep. I know. I haven't, other than the guy who mentored me, I hadn't really met anyone in person. It was more just books I had read and kind of like folklore, But it made a lot of sense, and I was willing to believe it and try it.
Yeah. Well, do you want to share your story, how it happened?
Yeah, sure. So to everyone who might be listening in the future, that we're talking about healing our vision, and then the deeper healing that goes along with it. To start with my story, I was a child, scared little, Christian boy in a world in Texas where, you follow the rules and it's all very kind of rigid and structured and you are a certain way and you become a certain person. And I wasn't a match for that reality. And so I had to hide myself. And as I was a child trying to do that process in a world where everyone is already stressed out because there's just so many rules and you have to do it right and look at the board and be quiet and you'll get demerits and like all that kind of world, I completely just like shut myself in, and I didn't know I was doing this. This is all an emotional response to trauma that tries to protect the little child. So I honor for what it was doing at the time. But it was definitely I don't want to see this world. It's scary. I want to just be in my own little thing and kind of, avert my eyes. And so I began only being able to see things up close, and I couldn't see the board anymore. And I couldn't see, that's when it starts as a kid. I can't see the board anymore, so it's time to go get glasses like all the other kids, But it was definitely something that was a trauma, and now I know that. I didn't know that for many years. And I originally learned about the Bates method, which I think is a starting point for many people in this kind of realm, and learned about it, started to apply it, especially in college when I was starting to do some deeper healing, but which is related to my autoimmune disease, which is another big part of this whole unraveling. But I didn't really embody it. I didn't really get it. You know what I mean? Eventually I had to put glasses back on. I had taken them off for a while, which is great. But then I had to put them back on and did that for a number of years until I got tired of it and was like, okay, it's time to actually do this thing that I know. I felt it before. I've had little glimpses of it, but I had never really embodied it. And then I got a mentor. I just attracted in this amazing mentor, this man who was just volunteering his time to mentor people who are open to it, in exchange that you give some energy back in another way. And so I love to do that through what I offer the world, which is how to heal yourself in a lot of different ways. So that's my story. I now am able to see legally while I drive. I was able to pass my driver's test without needing glasses. They tested me again because it was that time. And I'm now legally able to drive without glasses. So I can see. Woo! But it's so much more, as we're going to talk about. It's like that's a piece of it, but it's a cool piece.
Yeah.
See again. Yeah.
What was your vision when it was at its worst, and what is it now? Do you?
Well, with glasses, I could get away with like -3 to 3.25, and then of course I started working myself down from there, and now I can do without it. I mean, I could definitely, on a regular basis, clear some things up if I either practice or if I were to put some form of glasses on at pretty much any prescription below that amount. But I don't rely on the glasses. To me, it's kind of like caffeine, it's like I don't need to rely on it. It's like I could use it, it'd be great, fine, whatever, but I don't really need to. And I can literally just use that as my like, oh, how engaged are you? Like just checking in with myself, like how, it's like my barometer for my everyday vibrational, countenance. And so I use it, I don't try to just cover it up, but it's not like it's always perfect. You know what I mean? It can definitely be a slight buzz where I can be like, well, I can totally see that that's way up in the hills, a person walking around their van, but I can't like tell what kind of van it is right now. But, oh wait, I do all my little practices and I really focus. Oh, it's totally clear now. You know what I mean? So it's a choice. It's literally in every moment a choice. Yeah. And I love having that because it reminds me to make the choice to just be nicer to myself and to just be easier on myself and to be, healthier and happier if I want to be.
It's like real-time biofeedback.
Yes. Okay. Your turn. I want to hear your story because I know it's juicy as heck. So, okay.
Yeah. So one more thing before I tell my story. I don't know what -3 diopters is. Is that, do you know what that is in like a number over a number?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I would probably say 20, not a lot. Like I'd probably have to be, I don't know, 5 to 10 feet from the chart to read like the 20 line.
Oh,
so is that
okay.
25 or something? Like it's like I would have to be pretty close to it. Let's just say that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Well,
2020 was actually pretty, that one even now is like, oh, wow, okay. I really need to do my practices. I can, but, it's like not, yeah. So it wasn't like super, everything wasn't, like I could still, like that's a tree over there, but I definitely couldn't give you any details on the tree.
right,
So,
right, right,
yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay. Well, my story starts out similarly, religious upbringing and pretty severe trauma that I actually didn't have memories come back until my 30s. That I just shut out, and I started. I got glasses right when I entered junior high school, which is the time I went to tough schools where there were lots of fights, and I was actually afraid for my safety a lot of the time. and I, I put on the outer countenance of, being confident and tough, but inside I was frightened. And before I was out of high school, I had 2400, which is top line on the eye chart, vision.
Wow.
And I wore glasses all the time. So I went to college, and when I got out of college, I was in Seattle, or I think it was just shortly after I'd graduated. I was in Seattle and saw a flyer for vision recovery near the University of Washington, and it just it immediately, it was like resonant to me. Yeah, I think I could do this. So, and I met a man named Paul Anderson, who, like your mentor, was just like this wonderful person. And he was like the most kind person, the most safe person I'd ever met in my life to that point, probably.
Wow.
And when the very first time I went into his office, he sat me down and he said, he kind of explained that, he'd studied Bates and that Bates thought that poor vision was in almost every case the result of mental strain, not the result of anything else. And if you could release the mental strain, you could recover perfectly sharp vision. And so he said, I'd like you to count backwards from 20. And so I did. And then he said, okay, now count backwards from 20 again. And I did. And then he said, okay, look over there on the wall. And there was an eye chart over there on the wall, and I could read the bottom line. I was 20 feet away from the eye chart in the chair where I was. And that was from top line to the bottom line. And I could see it perfectly clear for about, just a few seconds until my mind went, wait a minute, you can't do this.
Yeah, this should be impossible, according to what we're told.
Right. This fear came up, because it just wasn't how I knew myself to be, or how I thought of myself, and so then my vision got bad again.
Of course.
But anyway, I still marvel today at how he did that, and he explained to me. He said, all I did was I took your mind off of its chronic strain long enough that it could relax. And when it's perfectly relaxed and present, you can see perfectly. When it's perfectly in a receptive state where it's not straining at anything. And so that was all I needed to. I was convinced, and I saw him for the next several months.
Okay.
And there was one particular Bates exercise that was the best for me in doing that. And then it was the memory one, where you actually visualization.
Okay.
Where you visualize. Bates, I don't know if this is one that you learned, but Bates said if you could visualize something perfectly in your mind, you could see perfectly at the same time, because the same state of receptivity and mental openness that's required to visualize perfectly is the same state of receptivity and openness that's required to see perfectly.
That one took me a while to get to. Like it was definitely at first, like that was one of the reasons I couldn't embody it, because I was just like, what are they talking about?
Oh, yeah.
But it did take some other kind of work, to get
Yeah.
to that point of being able to even visualize anything, because I
Right.
couldn't do that before. I mean, I couldn't even have a mental image, pretty much.
And for me too, I was terrible at visualization. It was very hard for me, and it took me a lot of years to realize you don't have to be perfect at it. You just have to, if you try and visualize and you can't visualize anything,
right? Because it's an allowing thing, yeah.
But if if when you try and visualize an orange, if it's different than a potato in any way. Even if you don't get an image, if you just get a different feeling in your body, anything you do is good. Any step you take in that direction is good. It doesn't have to be perfect. And in fact, a focus on perfection is strain.
Absolutely. And that's like what we're obsessed with in our culture, which is why I think we're all going blind.
That's right. That's right. So I just marveled that this guy, he figured it out himself. He read Bates really deeply, and I never did, but he just transmitted to me the depth of understanding he had.
Beautiful.
And, so I practiced at it for years, and actually had, I would get short flashes of 2020, but I never had much success for a long time. And he told me once, he said, "You're the hardest case I've ever worked with. You have more mental strain. Your mental strain is more deeply set than anybody I've worked with." But I was persistent, because I would have these flashes. And for about 5 years, I'd say I worked really hard at it. And then I just got so frustrated. I put all this time into the practices. I just went, you know what? I'm creating so much strain by doing this. I'm just going to stop doing it.
Beautiful. Yeah,
so
when you do that. That's a big realization to have, actually.
What's that?
That's a really big realization to have right there.
Yeah.
Honor that.
Yeah. And then, some months after I quit doing the practices, I started having spontaneous flashes of 2020 again. And I went, something is connected here, not trying so hard and having the 2020 vision come in. And so I kept practicing, but I did it with less intensity. And I would say it was quite a long time, but I began to have, at some point when I had mitigated and I was, all this time I was working on the trauma issues. I was doing one thing after another, really because the trauma was deep set in my nervous system. And I was hypervigilant and so forth. And so all these issues really to recover calm, receptive mental state had to be resolved as well. And the practices helped resolve them. They helped calm my nervous system down and so forth.
Did you ever use meditation as part of that?
I did meditation, probably thousands of hours of meditation, and it wasn't helpful for me because it was, I didn't like it really. I wanted to be moving. I didn't want to be sitting there with my eyes closed. Yeah. It felt like self-punishment to me.
Yeah.
And
I think the way a lot of people are practicing it is like that, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of the whole spiritual pretense behind it is very self-punishing. But when you break it down to just its most basic thing, it's just what you were talking about earlier, where you're in that state of allowing the well-being that is there always, because that's what is, to come through and to flow through. And so it's really, when I say meditation, that is one style of sitting, but really it's just whatever works for you that gets you to that point of allowing. Yeah. So I love how you're saying I was attracted to movement things, because me too. I can't stop moving. Like if I stop moving, I tense up, So I feel you on that one. But that could be your meditation. It's like moving around and like getting, sometimes it's like a diffused awareness. It's like you're just not focusing on any of the stories. Yeah, I mean they might come through, but you're not focusing on them. It's just letting the beingness that you are come true. But anyways, keep going. I want to keep hearing your journey.
Well, I did kind of developed my own meditation practices. Like,
Beautiful.
I would sit out in the wilderness. I spent, well, during this time, actually, this is when the memories of the trauma came back. And right after they came back, I got chronic fatigue and was really sick for 3 years.
Wow.
So I didn't have the energy to do much but sit. I would sit out in wild places and just take in the world, and just go and just try and empty my mind of all the stuff that I learned, all the conditioning, all the thing that wanted to be busy and tell me this is how it is, and this is what you do, and this is what you have to be afraid of, and this is what you have to run for right now. And as I spent a couple of winters just sitting in a marsh in Pescadero, California, in most of the day, just kind of taking in the world and trying to recover. I did slowly recover from the chronic fatigue, and then there's so many life things that happened, but I began to, when I would walk around doing this practice of visualizing, it was the most calm that I could get my mind, because usually walking around, like in a city, I would walk around Seattle when I was there, and you can be very re-stimulated by everything that you see. There's something I have to do. There's somebody, what's that person like? Your mind can be busy. And when I would walk around, I would visualize a letter of the alphabet, which is, Paul said, you need to choose something neutral that's not, that doesn't get your emotional, up. And I would walk around visualizing the alphabet, and I was more present in my life than I'd ever been. I saw what was around me more. I could feel the world more. And it was just amazing to me. And
it is meditation. That is meditation. You just described meditation.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Well, it is a type of meditation.
Yeah,
but
it's yours, and it's your beautiful life meditation.
Yeah. And then what happened is I began to develop my own practices. I began to understand, it's not about perfection, and there are many ways which are native to me to calm my nervous system.
Yes.
And I need to discover what those are. And so I developed, offshoots of the Bates practice that really felt good to me. Like one of them is I would just let myself notice things in the environment that were particularly beautiful to me and feel the beauty of them. Like, I love color. So if I was driving, I would notice the purple side of a building maybe, and I would just take in the purpleness and really feel it in my body. And my vision would get sharp as I did that. And so I found that there were different practices I could do, and my vision would go from 2200 or 2400 all the way to 2020 while I was doing them.
Right.
But I couldn't hold them for long periods of time. And then eventually I got so that they were happening for longer and longer periods. And for many years there was no practical value because I couldn't get sharp vision when I wanted. But then eventually I did start to have kind of breakthrough after breakthrough where, for whatever reasons, I'd just done enough internal work or whatever that I started to have extended periods of 2020, like for, hours or, maybe most of the day. And and that was like so exciting. And at that point, I was just at a point where I realized, I just need to do what feels native to me in terms of self-nurture to get this to keep happening. All those practices that I did were kind of like priming the pump. Wow. But the pump is myself. It's my own innate feeling for my happiness in life. And it sounds like the same direction that you found.
Well, I just love it because you just did my marketing video for me for our self nurture course, because that's literally what we discovered too. Like I can't teach you how to do it because I can only do mine, but I can teach you how to listen to yourself so you can
Yeah.
start to do it for yourself if you want to, and if you think you have enough value, which you do. We all have enough value. We're all
Right.
valuable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that that's been your experience.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me too, it still goes back and forth, and I go through kind of periods where I'm just seeing 2020 a lot, and periods where I'm not seeing 2020 as much, and I don't worry about when I'm not seeing 2020 as much. Even during those periods, when I need to see 2020, I can do it inside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting to me that it's still quite challenging for me, when I'm not in the space of whatever it takes, that it can still be pretty challenging for me to, like, if I sit for 10 minutes, I was at a show the other night where I wanted to see I think it was what was it? It was something where there was a screen far away, and I wanted to see it, and my vision was too blurry.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat there for about the first 10 minutes of the show, and I visualized the letter A. And by the time, by about 10 minutes, I was seeing 2020. I could see 2020.
Wow.
But what's amazing, and then it was 2020 for the rest of the show, but it could go away just like that if some tension or the desire to grab, reach out, and control things through the system, it can go away. So, and it's still, I'm still moving towards. I think at some point it'll be a norm for me. It's not the norm now.
Yeah.
Not the norm yet to have 2020, but it's moving in that direction. And it'll just be it's going to be a fun and interesting adventure to see what it takes for that to become the normal of my.
Well, it sounds to me like you're using the discomfort of not being in that, and the times when you are, for whatever reason, holding on to that tension. It sounds like you're using that as your catalyst for your personal growth and evolution, which is beautiful. And it's kind of like why we're here, and so you're like living really fully in this beautiful way. And I think what you said earlier, it's like, I think the key really is to accept those times when it's not as clear, or Like, you're good. You're taken care of, you know? Yeah. And I do feel like that has been the key to like the continuance of the vision improvement, because it is, like you said, it's this kind of, a little bit of a curve, and then when I'm in the one, I'm like, it's all not clear, I don't like it, what's happening? It's like, just relax into that and let it happen. Learn what you need to learn from that experience. And this also applies to like other major diseases, like you're talking about, like chronic fatigue. There's a lot of people that don't recover from chronic fatigue. You did. That's called healing yourself from an incurable condition. Although, I think in the past we knew that a lot of times things would just get imbalanced and you'd need to take a rest for a while. Your body's going to say, hey, take a rest. You're not going to be moving a lot right now. But I love what you said. This is just something that stuck out to me when you're talking about being in nature, is there was actually a lot of movement for your vision. You were sitting there still in your body, but nature doesn't really stop moving. It's so like, just this like
the third year of it, and Moshe Feldenkrais was influenced by Bates. He read Bates, and he developed a really profound understanding of neuroplasticity, to the point that he's sometimes called the father of neuroplasticity. He understood how movement changes the brain, and so a lot of Feldenkrais practices are related to the eyes. And they're beautiful because they really involve this thing of really moving, moving out of habituated conditions and patterns into the freedom of discovery, and that changes the brain, and actually there's a whole new field called NeuroOphthalmology, which for the first time validates what Bates said, that
finally,
90% of vision happens in the brain, not in the eyeballs. It's not the shape of the eyeballs primarily.
No. And scientists are discovering that our brain is multidimensional in the way that the synapses fire. So, it's consciousness. It's our consciousness. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I've definitely been fortunate to be in some ways channeling some of the Feldenkrais, because I get to dance with a lot of people like you who have trained in it. And there's a lot of people who have incorporated it into dance. And I'm like so excited because I just moved to this place in Northern California where they've been doing that a long time. And there's a really vibrant community of people doing that. So today in dance, I had this woman, just like we were like cats, and she was like draped over my back with her back, and we were just like massaging each other and like moving in these ways to like get our bodies back in their alignment. Because I mean, when you dance a lot, like it's hard on your body, like you will hurt yourself if you don't have practices like that, And so just like, like working it out on each other, and it's just really cool. Like, have you done any dance or like contact improv or anything like that?
I did a little contact improv a number of years ago, and I enjoyed it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because when you take that with like the Feldenkrais stuff, like I would love to explore with you. Like if we could get through these phones, which maybe we one day will, we could really play, because that would be a really cool fusion, of like working with another body, because it really does bring this sense of grounding and this presence, and it's like this energetic thing that kind of happens. I was just talking about it with a woman after dance. We had a little bit of contact during dance, but it's just really amazing what can happen with other people, like this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I think we, in the course of the years of working on the trauma, I had a fairly, what I would call some kind of pretty profound awakening. And it was really an awakening to kind of the mutuality, kind of the beauty of everyone, and that we're meant to awaken together. It's not the old hierarchical system where there's somebody up in front of the room telling you how it is.
Yep.
We really feed each other in our awakening to our potentials, to our possibilities in life.
Mm-hmm. Which does require what I am reflecting that you went through, because you shared it so beautifully, that you discovered your own ways of receiving your medicines and your connections and your ways and your, you know what I mean? Like really honoring your individuality
Right.
in a way that is very self-loving and self-nurturing. And that then allows you to have these kinds of conversations. Like we wouldn't even be able to have this conversation if we hadn't both discovered that in ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really beautiful way to lift others up, because we can be in a state where we're not competing for survival, which is that state of tension that we're talking about. It's the outward manifestation of it, especially as a group collective, which we are all of us feeling right now, the tension of that. And to be able to come into this mutuality of support where it's I'm not needing you to validate me and you're not needing me to validate you, but oh wow, I can see the love shining in you, and wow, that's amazing what you've learned from it and what you've been able to develop and cultivate, and wow, how can we support each other in that? And it does break down those hierarchies, which are violent. They're violent hierarchies, and they're not needed anymore, because we can all have this. Even if we're poor, even if we're rich, even if we're anything, we can all have this state of inner focus.
Yeah, and it's where happiness is. It's where really deep happiness is.
Yeah. Which is the coolest thing, that we discovered that like through our vision and through our suffering and through our glitches. Essentially, it was our glitches that helped us to discover it, and I trust that next time a glitch comes up. Because they seem to be never ending, but I don't know, it feels kind of like why I'm here, like to just play in that and work through that and suffer through that sometimes, and all of it, just being alive.
I'll mention another kind of a cool thing about the Feldenkrais work that's really a different paradigm, but I know you'll relate to it from your own journey. So much in the Western world is about strengthening and stretching and straining and accomplishing and achieving. And in Feldenkrais, it's always, is there an easier way to do that? Is there an easier way? And actually, you lay down on the floor to do a lot of the movement work so that you take all the strain out of your system, because strain is noise. And the less noise you have in the system, the more you can actually be aware of what's happening and find new possibilities that you've never known before when you were straining so hard to, keep yourself upright in gravity. You can find those possibilities without the strain and then take them into an upright position and move with more ease in the world. And
then you have unlimited energy potential, right? Versus being tired after something. And I've definitely found that through dance, because I've also found the opposite of that, which is where the strain, it's like I was able to train my body so much to where it could do a lot, and I could dance like crazy for hours on end, but then not be able to let go of the strain, and that burned out my adrenals, and then I went into a state of chronic fatigue. And I'm actually just coming out of that. It happened when that volcano erupted in Hawaii. I was there dancing, and it was just too much strain, and I got fatigued from it. And then as we moved here, because there's a lot of wisdom in the dance culture here of the types of movement you're talking about, the letting go, and just because I was also in a more grounded place where I could give myself more of the practices that I require to do that,
right.
Which is when you're running from a volcano, it's kind of hard to do that. But then I was able to heal it just by, like you're saying, letting go and letting that energy sort of build back up, heal all the tense channels, open those channels back up. And then it's like, again, you have this unlimited energy potential, and today, like, I was dancing. I just love having the reminders, like seeing this little woman that I was dancing with, and she's got to be in like her 60s or something, but she looks amazing, and her body is just banging, you know what I mean? It's this cute little, she can just move all kinds of ways. And I just saw her just dancing around, but it was effortless. I could just see, like, what you're talking about that they teach in Feldenkrais, where it's just this like total effortless movement,
Yeah.
And then I just was like, yes. And I just started like, laying on the ground and like letting my body go, and, getting back to that state. Because I found that I can't really have the energy I need to like really have that fully expressive dance where the energy is just flowing through my body, unless I've completely let go first, because otherwise it is just kind of this like powering through that doesn't feel very good.
Yeah, well, the body loves to be exercised, but it doesn't like to be used as a tool. And our culture use it as a tool to prove things.
That is a really good perspective right there, and profound in a lot of ways, because you can apply that to the earth.
Yeah.
Apply that to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what part of Northern California are you in?
It's called Grass Valley and Nevada City. They're like these two little cities that are really close. Yeah. And it's an hour away from Sacramento and Lake Tahoe, so kind of like right in between them. And there's just a lot of dance here, but a lot of other, types of conscious movement things like contact improv and different partner dancing. So I love to train for myself. Like I do. Sorry, I'm drinking a smoothie. And I love to do yoga, but for me, it's kind of become more of just a maintenance tool. Like I don't have like ambition behind it, or like, oh, I have to be able to do all my poses in front of everyone on Instagram perfectly, or anything like that. Like a lot of people are excuse me, a lot of people are using it for that. But I love the tool of yoga, but I love how it like has freed me into like fully expressing myself through movement, which I think is a big part of my vision thing, because a lot of it was that like trying to hide myself and be really just stiff in my body because I'm gay and I don't want anyone to see my flamboyant nature and all these things. Right. And so a big part of dance for me has been like a healing tool to break out of that, because it's an embodiment practice. You can't really lie about who you are or hide behind anything in it. You're just like completely exposed. No one is drunk at these things, and the lights are on. You know what I mean? So it's real. You're like seeing other people if you want. They can see you if they want, but you can do anything, and there's no rules. There's no hierarchy. There's no structure. You just do what you want, and you respect others doing what they want. And sometimes you come together in these beautiful expressions with other people, and sometimes it's just very internal, but it's been a really healing practice for me to just move and break out of my stuckness. That is what creates this, because for me it's very related to my back. Like I had a lot of back issues growing up because of this. And so healing that is a lot about like healing what we're talking about, that tension, that holding on to tension,
Right.
But I do actually want to really study Feldenkrais. So maybe we should get together and teach each other stuff.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah, well, I get down that way every once in a while, so that might be possible.
Cool. Yes, and we definitely, one of the things we're called to do is hold just really cool spaces for people to experience what we're talking about. And so I would love to, invite you to be part of anything that, we offer, where you can come and share your gifts, and we can all just kind of like co-create together. And we would definitely want to come to Alaska at some point, drive our bus or a van or something up there and do some kind of like camping adventure or something, camping movement, heal your vision adventure out in the woods. We can definitely do that.
Yeah. So, I'm curious, what vision practices have been the most effective for you in terms of?
That's a good question.
Do you feel a direct connection between the practices and your periods of clear vision?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been a big evolution, because like I said, I had stumbled upon the practices, and then they were working, but it wasn't really that sustainable. because I just tried to take my glasses off, and I was living in Hawaii at the time, and so it was like, oh my god, I'm missing out on all the really beautiful stuff, you know. So it was like this, like, kind of pressuring myself to put the glasses back on, and then just sort of stop doing the practices. But ones that have always helped me the most are movement, so just like swinging, but like in an intentional way, you know, like really making a point to, just like you said, be either walking around and like, okay, this is what I'm focusing on. And by being that like anchoring point and then doing something like the swinging, that's where it was like the most effective and the most like transforming, you know, because it was such a deep form of meditation. It was like a reset, you know, for my system. And watching TV was helpful because I would just practice. I would just be like laying on the ground, just like moving around and like practicing, like clearing it, and, you know, being able to, like, when I would learn about, for instance, sketching, or, you know, really, you know, doing the fine, like really focusing by getting the one pointed attention, that was really helpful. But then like moving that around to just playing with that. And that's a big practice, like we're seeing the details and like just really zoning in on like the smallest of details. And then I know that these all have like terminology in the Bates method, and I'm purposely trying not to use them so people know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so it's just like really noticing the details, moving my eyes around, more blinking. Because what I find is they get really just stiff and tense, you know, like my hamstrings used to. And so I even can see it now. I'm like, oh, girl, your eyes, like, you need some makeup or something. No, I don't use makeup for that. But it's like, then when I relax them, all of a sudden my face just looks like so much more like, you know, like relaxed and happy and all of these things. So it's paying attention to all those things, like just my inner tension, what I can do, which is usually movement, and paying attention to the details, blinking, sketching. Those are all things that, you know, and then while I'm doing that, just breathing and like relaxing my system, doing some yoga, you know, getting on the ground and just like stretching and like, you know, shaking my head out so that my neck kind of releases, and my spine is a big source of tension. So really doing things like Pilates, that helps to just like reset my spine and like the connection with how to like use it in a way that's like effortless but strong. That's really helpful for me, because as soon as my spine gets tense or tight, then my digestion gets tense or tight, and then, you know, that starts to mess with your psychology, obviously, because it's totally intertwined. So those have kind of been like my biggest, most important practices. But, you know, again, I mean, I've played with all the different techniques. My coach was great for getting me like the chart. I use the chart a lot. You know, different methods with my finger, like all kinds of things, like, you know, just little, almost like a little warm up for my eyes, and then just having that intention throughout the day. Things like that were really helpful. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that like evolves over time, you know, like you were saying. It's like you just use the ones in the moment that are inspiring you to do it, you know, to just pay attention and to enjoy the practices. So
I think a big part of it is just taking your glasses off and just the possibility that, you know what, maybe I don't need these. People that did that would start having flashes of sharp vision and realize, you know what, maybe I didn't get the right information on these glasses.
I mean, it's documented. Like, it is definitely something that is in the literature, that when people do that, their eyes do automatically start to get more effective or stronger, whatever you want to, you know, however you want to call it. And so I do think if people were really just to believe that they could do it and then try it, they would probably find ways of like, you know, relaxing themselves. But I do think that these systems like what Bates has shared and others have built around, and even those of us now who are doing it, who are adding to all of that with our experience, I think it's just great because it opens up the toolkit. You know, it's like, okay, here's all these tools. And then as you find these in yourself, because just knowing about them doesn't help. You have to actually find it in yourself. As you find it in yourself, then chances are you're going to start finding even more and more and more, because they just kind of add to that, you know, those pathways opening in our brain, that neuroplasticity like you're talking about. And then we're all just like sharing them with each other. And I mean, it seems like the kind of thing that could spread like a fire, you know what I mean? It's like if we all just like told each other, hey, you know, this is possible. Like, We're gonna. I guarantee you, this video will get over 1,000 hits because that's what's been happening, and this is a really good conversation.
Oh,
So that's 1,000 people that are gonna know about it at least. I don't know if they'll all actually watch all of it, but maybe they will. But I just feel like I feel like healing is a something that we could share, just the way you share, a flu or a cold. Like I think you could share this kind of deeper healing as we just move through the world and let each other know it's possible. Give each other permission, because I think that's something that I really feel called to speak to is that there is in place in our country a medical system that its primary focus is on certain treatment models that are based on just really old mechanical models of ways of seeing biology that actually aren't the way biologists or real scientists see the world anymore. And I just feel like it's something that convinces people that they're defective and that something's wrong with them, and that their only chance is to use these very old mechanical allopathic things that work against your biology instead of working with your biology. And so I think that people need more permission to heal themselves because they're being told that they can't heal themselves. And I personally find that to be criminal. And I find that that's going to be something that at some point we will, as a culture, wake up to and realize, oh, that's something we need to punish or get, not punish, but like end. Like, let's not fund that anymore. Let's like get out of that model. But
and what holds the flawed biological models in place is economic interest.
Yes. And there are some conflicts of interest right now going around.
Well, that was true in Bates's time. He taught at a school of ophthalmology that was starting to train. It was at the time when glasses were being widely prescribed, and that's how ophthalmologists were going to make their living. Mm-hmm. And when he taught people how to recover vision naturally, he was kicked out of the school of ophthalmology.
Yep. that is the big fear, I think, in science and in medicine and dentistry, is that it's the fear of getting kicked out of the fraternity, and that if you don't have that fraternity, then you're legally not allowed to do it anymore. But it's an interesting thing because a fraternity is always going to have this weird hierarchy that, especially right now, because it's such a profitable thing, and because we're in a model of social governance where that's a thing that even can be profited on, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's going to lead to these issues that are going to, basically what I see it as is it's stunting our scientific evolution and therefore our ability to have medicine evolve, because medicine itself could be evolving much more rapidly if we were more true to true science instead of just the corporate interests of one particular type of medical model that is actually quite outdated. I mean, there's still use for it even in today's day and age. It's not like obsolete, but for a large part, the way it's being used for most people is very outdated, and we could actually use more of what we're talking about here, which I don't even want to name because it's not like it's one particular industry or one particular path, but it's here inside of us, and it's something that we all have access to. And I love that we're speaking to that together.
Yeah. Well, the traditional model is it's dogmatic, and it's based on old ideas that I think don't evolve because of what you talked about before, this fear for survival. People have an economic interest, and they believe that our survival depends on competing and having something that somebody else doesn't have instead of cooperating. And I think that's the next stage of the evolution, is to realize we don't need to hang on to those things. Actually, we're better off if we're all together rather than we're fighting to be at the top of the pack.
Yeah, I had a really healing experience around that when I first last summer went to this festival called Beloved. And it's a beautiful festival in the woods in Oregon. And it gave me this experience of that group culture, kind of almost like a tribe, or like this big group of people. You don't know everyone, but like you feel like a family because of the way that it's set up to be this sort of cooperative, almost like a gift culture kind of an experience. And it made me realize that, oh, this is something very inherent in us that we can all relax into and that we can all have. And it's not about that festival or, Burning Man or any other festival. It's just like there is the possibility when we come together with this state of just allowing, that we can actually create a culture of nurture and a culture of allowing and a culture of healing, where we support each other when we're in a state of disease, instead of thinking, oh, well, you just need to go have radiation therapy. It's like, oh, you have some work to do on yourself. Let's support you in that. Let's help you heal and find deeper relaxation. And yeah, that's the vision I hold for the world right now. For myself, really.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun to hear how similar your journey was to mine in terms of, I think, the vision going bad is very much related to trauma and fear, and so many people for whom that is the case don't even know it. I didn't know it until about my 30s when it hit me all of a sudden in the form of a really severe depression. And I think it is, it's just like, this is the next step of evolution as far as I'm concerned, is to just move away from the fear and towards the love, towards the kindness to oneself. And
self-love and self-nurture is like a whole new paradigm, I think, that really isn't new. It's like just our natural state, but it's like a coming back into that we're just discovering.
It's inborn, I think, and then we get trained out of it, and we have to rediscover it.
Yeah. And in that case, these so-called diseases we've had, or the vision loss, all the things that seem so pathological, it's a really question, well, are they really pathological if they've led me to this deep realization that I couldn't have just learned about? I couldn't have just gone to college and gotten this knowledge. It's like something that only came from that experience and that contrast, and if I can use that every day, that realization that it's the contrast that brings the deeper realization, then all of a sudden that shifts my relationship with the so-called bad things in life, because they're happening. I mean, there's a fire right, an hour away that burned an entire town. There's contrast happening, and it's like, how do we do with that? It's like, we're always going to have things that cause traumas, but what's our relationship to it within ourselves, and how do we use it?
Yeah, it calls on us to keep innovating.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because I was realizing as we were finishing up last time, I never really, we didn't really wrap this part up. Have you ever shared, this technique or, approach to vision with anyone who's been curious, or have you not really run into anyone yet who's ready for that?
I'm just getting to the point where I'm interested in sharing it more, and I posted on my Facebook page, to let friends know, what's happened, and I just started a YouTube channel where I'm starting to help. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, what is the YouTube channel? Or do you even have a name yet for it? Because I know they take a while to actually let you use your name as the link.
The channel's called Playful World.
Playful World. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I look forward to subscribing to that and checking it out, because it's something, as we talked about, that you can never use enough reminders, and the techniques, so to speak, that can be shared, or something you can always be using and trying on different ones, and it's a never-ending for sure.
Right. I think that's why it was fun to connect with you, and just I was really curious to know what things have worked for you, and I think it's going to be really individual. It'll be different for every person.
Yeah, and for ourselves from moment to moment too. I think you having that channel will be great, because as those practices shift and you use them, and find different, little details in them, you'll just keep sharing that. And one thing I found with, because I do also share some different things, like movement things online. And one thing I find is when I go back and watch them, I'm like, oh, that's really useful for me right now. You know what I mean? Because I'm not always in that level of, clarity and realization that when maybe I put that information out there, recorded it, to
Right.
share. And so I find it really helpful for myself to have that as a resource. So, yeah. So playful innovation, you said?
Playful World.
Playful World. Playful World. I like that. All right. Well, let's also, as we share this, let people know that we're available for assisting for those who want this level of healing, which, as we talked about, goes a lot deeper than just the eyes.
Yeah.
Although they are basis. So.
Yeah. All right.
All
Thanks.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. This is actually great because I was like, oh, we didn't really end it like as well as, kind of like for instance, the sound cut out. And I was like, oh, so this is a good little cap.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
all right. Well, have a great. Yeah. Let's connect soon. All right.
Okay. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I hope this conversation inspires you to take better care of yourself. If you want to learn more about how to heal your vision, I would love to have a conversation with you and see if my coaching is a good fit for you. And if you want to heal yourself from cell to soul, then I highly recommend checking out offerings.spoonfulofparadise.com, where Dr. Tracy Potterf and I have a powerful program called Closing Your Nurture Gaps, which are basically looking at the root cause of illness as some form of unmet need that only you can meet through self-nurture. We would love to hear from you. Talk to you soon. Bye.